Jesus was just a great man versus what? The Son of God?
Yes. I think that is... well, I'll take a stab at this. Yeah, the question is this. Is Jesus just a great teacher, a guru, a prophet of some sort, or is he more than an ordinary human being? And the Gospels challenge us to accept that he was, in fact, more than just a human being. In fact, a lot more. He was God on earth. You know, let me just say this. In the interest of time, I'll make it short. But one of the things that really brought me back to Christ was that I was in my dad and I started going to a Unitarian church. And it was more of just a think tank than it was a church like most of us would think of church. They get together and talk philosophy and politics and whatever. And so we both like to fancy ourselves as intellectuals, so we'd go on Sundays and talk. One of the messages I heard there was by a professor at the University of Minnesota giving a sermon, if you can call it a sermon, and the title of the sermon was Why Socrates Was a Greater Man Than Jesus. That was the title of it. And he made the case that Socrates was a greater man than Jesus because a great person doesn't draw attention to themselves, doesn't make claims that are bigger than themselves, doesn't make people dependent on themselves. And Socrates did that. He helped people birth their own genius and bring forth their own ideas. He saw himself as a midwife who, having brought the best out of a person, would step aside. He didn't draw attention to himself. But Jesus, this guy says, just going on the basis of the historical records that we have, well, you get the impression that this guy thought he was God or something. He made these claims for himself, and he quoted a couple, and when he died, his disciples end up praying to him and worshiping him. At the very least, he didn't take precautions against that happening, which a great human being would do. And so he said, by ordinary standards, Socrates was a much greater man than Jesus. Jesus, in fact, on the basis of these historical records, we have to come to the conclusion that, well, today we would consider him to be touched in the head. And what that did to me was it forced this issue, because I kind of wanted to still think of Jesus as a good guy, just to hedge my bets, you know, in case I'm wrong. I didn't want to say anything insulting about Jesus, but he forced this issue that really the choice isn't between Jesus being a good man or the Son of God. The choice is, I think, between Jesus being the Son of God or a lunatic. Because lunatics go around saying that they're the Son of God when they're not. Only the Son of God goes around saying he's the Son of God when he's the Son of God. And on top of that, there's nothing, the puzzling thing is that there's nothing in the Gospels that indicate that he was a lunatic. Everyone agrees that some of his teachings were the most outstanding, insightful, teachings there are. Lunatics usually don't do that. And so the choice is, I think, either he's the Son of God, which simply means the second way that God exists. God existing in the form of a human being. Either he's that, or I think he's something much less than a good human being.